welcome to another edition of the Empower Hour. I'm AlQamar.
And I am Hanifah.
And we are your hosts each and every week, where we come to you with impactful topics of discussion that affect our everyday lives. Today will be no different. We have with us, not in the studio, but you will definitely hear and Skyping in all the way from the United Kingdom, Sister Shanice with Starlight Travel Events. Sister Shanice, are you there?
I am indeed.
Yay! It's so great to see you again and hear your voice. How are things in the UK?
Well, the UK is its usual self. The weather's very grey and gloomy. It's wet and miserable. They're deporting lots of Jamaicans back as fast as they can.
I read about that. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been protesting, we've been demonstrating against it, but the Prime Minister said he's deporting them Jamaicans back. He don't care.
I read about that. That's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day.
It is.
Use them up.
Well,
you want to tell people also if they want to see her.
yes.
If you want to capture like the whole, well, us and Shanice on the screen, you can go to eLife Media Group on Facebook. That should be happening live right now, so you'll be able to see us as well as Shanice on the screen. But if you're just using this platform, which is the Empower Hour, you're only going to be able to see AlQamar and I, but you'll be able to hear everyone involved in the discussion. So that includes Shanice as well.
All right, Sister Shanice, traveling to Africa. So let's tell us a little bit about why you are one of the best voices to talk about traveling to Africa, making a trip to the motherland if you are not on the continent. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'm a radio presenter on a radio channel here in the UK called Galaxy Afui. It's the only de-brainwashing station here in the UKKK. We talk about issues from an African-centered perspective. My shows are on a Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. GMT time, so it's about 5 in the morning your time, and on alternate Saturdays. So I do that. Have lots of fun, and I upload my shows onto SoundCloud and onto YouTube. So that's under the Sister Shanice show. I'm also what they call a vlogger. I put videos up, documentaries. I comment on issues that impact on us as a people. So my vlogs are up there. Again, under the Sister Shanice show. What else do I do? I'm an author. I've written a book called My Coconut Trees that can be found on Amazon. Everyone says it's a good read. Talks about life here in the UK compared to life as my parents experienced it in Jamaica when they came over here, what their experience was here in the UK. And I also, do trips to Mama Africa.
Yay! Yes, and what we are here to discuss today. How did you become so interested in taking trips to Africa? How did that all come about?
Wow, well, I've always been very interested in Africa. Despite the images that we have been shown here of Africa and that continue to be shown here of Africa, really, and it tends to be like the aid agencies type images, and that's enough to put everybody and anybody off of going to Africa. But it didn't put me off at all. And I think I first visited Africa about 10 years or so ago, and absolutely fell in love with the place, and been going backwards and forwards since then. And then I think it's when I started doing my radio shows on Galaxy about 3-4 years ago. We were always talking about Africa, and I realized that the vast majority of people who were talking about Africa, about repatriating to Africa, about going back home to Africa, had never been. And the vast majority of them had never been, mainly because they just didn't have family members or friends who'd want to go with them. You know, because of the images, as I've said, of Africa. If you say to someone you're going to Africa, a lot of them say, what do you want to go there for? You know, man, a lion don't run you down and eat you or something like that, you know.
Very true.
I mean, we've had that.
Right, right. So recently you have been taking groups of individuals over to Zimbabwe and now Tanzania. Why those two locations? Well, let's take Zimbabwe for first. Why out of all the places in Africa you can visit, why Zimbabwe?
Oh, so many reasons why Zimbabwe. I absolutely love the history of the country. You know, it's incredible. Their history, documented history anyway, goes back to well over 100,000 years. And the history is phenomenal. And so I've always been interested in the history in that part of Africa. They've been digging gold mines for well over 100,000 years. There's evidence of that. They have a higher level of science, or basically the ancients. You know, there's the ancient civilizations that existed in the southern region of Africa was of such a high level of sophistication that even the technology that we have today, you know, can't fully reveal, you know, the levels of sciences that our ancestors were tapped into. So I just found that so incredible. So, for example, when they built their cities and their kingdoms, they'd line it up with the stars and the galaxy, and you know, they were able to tap into the natural currency, the natural energy that goes around the world that we can't see with the naked eye. They were able to tap into all of that. And even today, there's evidence of mine shafts that they would dig that would be like 50 meters deep, and they dig these mine shafts with such precision. Even today, they've got no idea what instruments they were using to dig these mine shafts. And there's all these stone circles all over the southern region of Africa. And when you go into some of these stone circles, apparently the magnetic field in those stone circles, you know, is just like something from another planet. So there's so much to fascinate me about the southern region of Africa. And then even if you roll forward more recently, you know, the great Robert Gabriel Mugabe, you know, hail him up.
Yes,
but
yes.
Yeah.
Great man he is.
So I have a question about just traveling in general. So the idea a lot of people have as far as traveling to Africa, especially people that I've talked to who want to travel to Africa, is the expense. Because to be honest, when you're looking for places to travel to, of course there's a mindset change that has to happen, because really if we get to the bottom of it, people prefer other places over Africa because they have these preconceived notions as far as the motherland. They only can imagine because they've never been. Mm-hmm. But the reality also is that oftentimes you always have like Caribbean places, for example, that have these discounted prices. So it tends to be cheaper, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So if someone that wants to travel and perhaps they're living paycheck to paycheck, what can someone in that position do to prepare themselves for travel to, let's say, Zimbabwe or Tanzania, to be a part of your group?
Right. Well, I can give out my email address, and people, you know, are welcome to contact me and to, you know, drop me a line and ask me any questions that they have. Yes, it is a bit pricey to travel to Africa because, you know, it's such a distance, and it has to go via Europe as well. All the flights, most of them go via Europe, and so there's all that added expense. But what we offer is a payment scheme plan. So people don't have to pay all at once. They pay on a monthly basis, you know, and I've just noticed my pretty lady's dropped off around the back there. So yeah, people can pay on a monthly basis. They don't have to pay all at once. And yeah, the images that you get on we say the television, you know, is enough to put you off. But don't be put off, because Africa is beautiful. The landscape is amazing. The wildlife is second to none. The people are so warm and welcoming. It's a beautiful, beautiful continent, and it's ours, you know. So we've got to. It's like going home to Motherland.
It really is. It is. So, do you get a lot of people that talk to you about repatriating from, you know, and if so, give us a little bit about what that may entail based on your perspective.
Okay, well, I've recently returned from the Gambia. I was 2 months in the Gambia, and over the festive season. And because the Gambia is closer to the UK than Zimbabwe is, we've got quite a few British people who are actually who've already repatriated to the Gambia or are in the process of repatriating. And, you know, repatriation, first of all, requires planning. It's really important to firstly visit the place that you're thinking of repatriating to, get to know the country, get to find out what life would be like living there, spend, you know, maybe a couple of months there at first, get to know the people, attach yourself to a family. They will embrace you, you know, get to know the policies of the land, etc. And, you know, if your language is only English, then ideally you want an English-speaking country as well. And so once you've spent a couple of months in a country, got to know, you know, the people, the family, maybe you want to travel backwards and forwards a bit as well. While you're doing that, very important to have, well, if you're going to completely repatriate, make sure that you've decided whether you're going to rent initially and then build, or if you're going to buy outright. Yeah, but the cost of living in Africa is much cheaper than it is in the UK. Certainly the Gambia is. Zimbabwe is probably on par, actually, with the cost of living here in the UK. But the property prices are much cheaper. You can get so much more for your money. So you know, if you've got property in the UK or the USA, once you sell up, the likelihood is, especially if you've got, you know, property in the city, you will be able to get a much bigger, a much better property for half the price. Plus, you'll get some land where you can grow some trees, some, you know, fruit trees and all kind of something, you know?
Yeah. Did you guys over in the UK get caught up in that frenzy of the year of return? Have you heard of that one where Ghana was calling for all the Africans to that in the diaspora to come back home in last year?
Yes, we heard all about it. We didn't get caught up in it. We've got brothers and sisters here from the UK who've been going backwards and forwards from to Ghana for many years. They've got land over there, are building projects over there. So we've had, you know, a really close relationship with Ghana for probably about 20-30 years now. So we think that it's probably more of a phenomena for the diaspora coming from the USA, but the British and the Jamaicans, you know, we've been going there for a couple of decades now. But you know, it's really exciting that the president actually embraced, you know, the diaspora, because the interesting thing about Africa is that ordinarily, or until recently, when they talk about the diaspora, what they tend to talk about are their own nationals who are living outside of their country of birth or their country of origin. So when, for example, Zimbabweans talk about the diaspora, they're talking about the children of those who were born in Zimbabwe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that's the same for most African countries. But what we've been campaigning for about for a good number of years now is for Africa to recognize those of us who are the descendants of their ancestors who were enslaved and taken away, to recognize us also as the diaspora, to recognize us as the children who may want to return back home to Africa, to recognize that, you know, when we left Africa, or when our ancestors left Africa, when their family members were taken away from Africa, you know, they were attached to a family, they had land, they had a culture, they had a language, etc., etc. And it's to recognize that those very same ancestors of theirs that they know of that were taken away, that they are in us. We are the returning ancestors. We are the ones, you know, that are carrying the DNA of their ancestors that were taken away. And that, you know, they need to recognize us when we want to come home, you know, as the diaspora as well, and not as, you know, I don't know, Black British or Americans, Black Americans, you know. So that has been that's an ongoing educational kind of piece of work that we're having to do with our brothers and sisters, you know, and which we continue to do via the WhatsApp, via the visits, via the workshops, you know, because there's been a huge disconnect between ourselves and our brothers and sisters on the motherland. But now that we're returning, you know, we're linking hands and we're making the connections, you know, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes, I agree. Give us an example, if you may, of what some of the feedback is from those who have traveled with you for the first time to the motherland. What are some of the kind of resounding things that you hear over and over again from different people?
It's always like, wow, it's an amazing experience. The traveling, the wildlife, what we say now? Oh, it's emotional for some people as well. You know, when they reach, they want to kiss the ground. They feel at home. They feel welcomed. You know, it's like, you know, they just want to be at one with Mother Nature. They take their shoes off. They want to walk on the ground. You know, people feel differently, but it's an emotional journey and experience for most of them.
Yeah. Why do you think that is, Sister Shanice?
There's a healing. There's a healing with going back home. You know, you actually feel as though you're going back home. Like, although I was born here in the UK, I have never been made to feel it's my home. You know, as I said to you at the outset, they're deporting people back to Jamaica, even if, you know, they left Jamaica when they were 4 years old, even if they're now British subjects, British citizens, they're deporting them back. Because as far as the British are concerned, those are the European British, you know, we're not British, you know, we're Africans, you know, and we're in their country. Even though I was born here, so I've never been made to feel at home here. And I go to Jamaica and they'll be like, hey, Miss English, you know. So I'm like, where do I belong? And when I go home to Africa, and this is the experience that almost everyone that travels with us have, when we go to Africa, it's like we feel at home. And the brothers and sisters over there, they say, welcome home. Welcome home, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
AlQamar, you traveled with me last year.
Yes,
what was your experience?
Yeah, I did for my very first time, and it was amazing. We actually have some photographs too that we'll put up to share with the people. So, what do you think is some of the major cultural differences? There's a photograph of me embracing an elephant.
Yeah. I mean, where in America can you do that? Where in the UK could you get up and close like that with an elephant?
Nowhere.
You just can't.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and out in their habitat, and not in a zoo somewhere enclosed in a tiny cage. You know, so these are elephants that are free to roam in their own plane, and you know, all that, and that
Yeah.
we're coming into their habitat. That's what I love so much about visiting
Yeah.
game parks there. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, and the space that they have as well, you know,
Right.
it's probably like the size of one of your states in America,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
the vastness of the land that they have, and they're, like you say, they're just free to roam. The elephants, the giraffes, the lions, they're all out there. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
I think that one
And
of
that
the
picture that you was just showing in the background there, that was at Heroes Acre,
Yes.
and phenomenal history, you know,
Yes.
at Heroes Acre. That's
Yeah.
another thing when we travel. We learn so much about the history.
No doubt.
Now, Heroes Acre, that's the place where they've buried a number of their veterans, a number of their revolutionary freedom fighters who fought in the Bush War to take their country back from the Rhodesians, the white Rhodesians. And so that place there is a place where they've honored them. There's a museum there as well where they actually talk about the horrors as well of the wars, because most people don't know, you know, the suffering and what they actually went through during those years that they were fighting against the Rhodesians. And even until today, there are over 1 million, they said, landmines that are dotted between Botswana and Zimbabwe on the border, and sorry, Mozambique and Zimbabwe border. And now and again, animals will trigger the landmines and get blown up. People will trigger the landmines and get blown up. And what we were able to do before we left to go there last time is we had a fundraiser event, and we made contact with some landmine victims. There's a whole community of landmine victims. And we said, what can we do to help and support? They said, well, we need wheelchairs, we need Zimmer frames, we need walking sticks, you know, and we also need some training or a livelihood. Well, with the funding that we raised, we were able to bring down loads of wheelchairs, walking sticks, Zimmer frames, and we gave them over $2,000 to start up a commercial goat farming project. And I've had lots of photos back of all the goats that they bought, you know. And what was beautiful was that when we arrived in Harare, the following day they came down to see us. A whole minibus of them come down, and we had a presentation, and we gave them the money, and we gave them all the gifts, and it was beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, AlQamar, you were there to experience it as well.
Yes, indeed. I can't wait to get back to Tanzania. So we're going to Tanzania in October. And so I'm looking forward to that. I got the bug. I have, you know, I'm like, look, I got bit and I want more. So I'll be back.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, every day was an experience. Every day is just a totally different experience. There's a safari experience, there's a cultural experience, there's the wonders of the world, you know. So we went to the Masuya Tunya region, for example, where, you know, it's the smoke that thunders, and we experienced that there as well. There's
which is
the
Victoria Falls,
volcano.
which is the colony.
Oh yeah, for those that don't know, it's you might know it as the Victoria Falls, but we call it Musuya Tunya, which is the ancient name for it.
Yeah.
We go to Mashvinga, where we go visit the great kingdom of Zimbabwe. We climb the ruins, and as I said, you know, they would build their kingdoms and their cities on the ley lines. You know, they'd line it up with the galaxy. So when you go and you climb, you get a boost of energy, and you know, you just get so much energy from being in that country. So we climb the great kingdom of Zimbabwe. We learn the history of that ancient city. We go to Bulawayo, which is like the second city is of Zimbabwe. From Bulawayo, we go to Hwange, which is where we got the wildlife, and then from Hwange we go to the Masuya Tunya region, then we come back down to Harare, you know. So we cover a huge amount of of the country. And then we go to Chinoy on the east of the country as well and do the Chinoy caves, which is another experience, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just phenomenal.
It
In
really is.
in the UK, there's just nothing like it,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. What is some of the differences you notice culturally from both countries? I mean, when like some things that you can really like put your finger on and say that this is just so different how they live here versus where I'm
Right,
from in the UK.
right, right. Well, first of all, obviously the climate is very
Oh,
different.
true.
So in the UK, 90% of the time, it's cold, it's miserable, it's raining, it's wet, it's windy. Yeah, and so the people are miserable.
Mm.
The weather's miserable, the people are miserable.
Mm.
You know, everyone's cold, they've got to wrap up, you know, and keep warm. It's not nice, you know.
Mm.
Whereas in Africa now and in Zimbabwe when we were there, it was hot, it was sunny, so you're outdoors, everyone's happy, the people are happy, the people are friendly. You go to the shops, the people are friendly. Over here, you go to the shops, the people are miserable, you know. And there's just a vibe and an energy as well that you get from the sun, which is beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful.
Mm.
The difference is, again, of course, you've got the wonderful wildlife. The UK just doesn't have that. All you see in the UK is like foxes, cats, and dogs. Basically, that's it. You go to Africa. You know, you've got such majestic, beautiful animals.
Yeah.
You know, the monkeys, they come right up to you. They
Yes.
eat from out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
the elephants, you can go up close to them as well. The lions, when they're young, only when they're young, you can get up and close and walk with the elephants while they're young, the lions while they're young. You can do helicopter rides over Masuya Tunya, zip wire. It's just an outdoor lifestyle, you know, that's beautiful. And the people are beautiful. The people are friendly. We can
Mm-hmm.
cruise down the Zambezi River. Yes, Errol. We can
Mm-hmm.
cruise down the Zambezi River and just enjoy the beautiful sunset, see the orange from the sun on the water. It's just gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
just gorgeous. You know, in here in the UK, it's far more developed in terms of its infrastructure. It's got the high-rise buildings, and so you can walk around all the time looking up at all the different buildings. And then they've got some of their iconic buildings like Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, Tower of London, and that's all of our history as well, because the Moors were behind the building of a lot of those places, but they just don't tell us that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, you've got a lot of history here that they've managed to retain. And Africa, as we know, lost a lot of its history to the destruction that it experienced by the Europeans when they came across Africa and its great buildings and its cities and its kingdoms, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is that vast difference there in terms of the infrastructure. But having said that, you know, the Zimbabwean infrastructure, I think almost everybody traveling with us finds is almost on par. Maybe not on the scale, but definitely in terms of, you know, the quality. Yeah, it's got a lot of old infrastructure there that they've managed to hold on to and maintain as well.
So, what just came to my mind, I was actually going to ask about the people because we have sort of like, let me see, I don't even know how to define it, but there's like a little bit of a division almost that some people are pushing here in America between what we call continental Africans and the diasporic Africans that are here in America. And so I wanted you to speak to just the embracing of the people, you know, because I've experienced it myself in East, when I visited East Africa. I mean, I know that because I've traveled there. But for the people who may have some apprehension around traveling there because they've been told, whether it's through propaganda, the media, or just people just talking who have never traveled there, I need you to, if you could just speak to you guys' experience as far as the embrace that you've received and the welcome the welcoming energy that you've received while you guys when you actually visit and since you frequent there. If you could just speak about that for those who are listening and they may just have a little bit of an apprehension about traveling because of hearsay.
Right. Yes, indeed. Now, when you go to Africa, you will be embraced by the Africans there. You know, they are so happy to see us. They welcome us like their long lost brothers and sisters. You know, these are the ordinary Africans on the ground. They embrace us. They say, welcome home, my brother. Welcome home, my sister. Because, you know, they're not used to seeing us. You know, when they see tourists, normally it's Europeans, it's white people, it's the Wazungus. They don't see us Africans hardly, you know. So when we do come, you know, it's like, wow, you know, you've come to see us, you've come to visit us. They love us. Yeah. We mustn't believe the hype. We mustn't listen to, you know, there's a lot of divide and rule. And we have been divided and kept away from our brothers and sisters for hundreds of years. But now, you know, we have the opportunity to return and see for ourselves. And I haven't been to any African country as yet and just not been wholeheartedly embraced by our fellow brothers and sisters.
Is Tanzania and Zimbabwe two places that you guys go every year, or do you alternate
Right.
every
Well,
two
this is
years?
year four. 2020 is going to be year four on our trips to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Tanzania is going to be year one.
Yeah, a real adventure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that trip to Tanzania.
Yeah.
Really excited. The main difference between the two as well, there's a lot of differences between the two, but one of the major differences is going to be the landscape because Tanzania is coastal, whereas Zimbabwe is landlocked. So, as beautiful as Zimbabwe is, you don't have the sea, you don't have the beach, you know, the white sandy beaches and the sea, but you have the lakes. Whereas in Tanzania now, because it's coastal, we're going to beach experience as well. And they also have the safari experience. They've also got natural wonders of the world that are protected heritage sites. They've also got the culture. They've also got the phenomenal amount of history as well that we'll be learning while we're there.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. You know, an interesting thing when I was listening to you talk about how the you know the Europe when the people on the continent see tourists, it's usually Europeans. And
That's
it's,
right.
it's interesting how we're taught, you know, don't go there and all, you
So,
know, the monkeys and, you know, ancient time dirt road, but they're there in droves.
Yeah.
right. Yes,
Hmm.
they're all up in the place there.
Yes.
Everywhere you go, you see them. You can't get away from them. And yeah, it's when you go over on the plains, the vast majority of the people who are flying are Europeans. You know, we are, you know, few in numbers, and alongside the Europeans, the other largest groups that you get flying to Africa are the Chinese.
Yep.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and Indians.
And the Indians. I was just about to
And
say
the
that. And
Indians.
Indians, yeah.
Everybody except for us.
Yeah.
Everybody except for us. But now, you know, we're coming home. We're going back. We're
Yeah.
taking our family and we're taking our friends and we're going back home. And, you know,
Yeah.
Africa has been their best kept secret. I heard one of the artists say that when they visited Africa. I can't remember which one it was. One of your American artists that visited Africa,
Hmm.
when he came back, he said Africa is has been their best kept secret.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I would agree
they
with
don't
that.
want us to return. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to think that you're speaking about one specific or two specific, well, not necessarily Tanzania, but right now the conversation is kind of centered around one specific country. And if all of that is in that one country,
Right.
you know, and I know in East Africa, it's just as beautiful. I'm talking the people, the culture, the music, the energy, the vibe, everything is beautiful. Those are just two countries that we're talking about.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
We have so many other countries in Africa that is yet to be explored. What does that look like?
Good point.
You know?
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've spent the last 2 months in the Gambia,
Oh,
and the
yes.
Gambia is just as
Yeah.
beautiful, you know. And we're here in the UK. We have a lot of brothers and sisters that travel to Ghana, and they're telling me that Ghana is just like Jamaica. Jamaica is absolutely beautiful, so Ghana must be too. And yeah, you're talking about the east part of Africa. You know, the whole of Africa, Ethiopia. You know, these are places that our brothers and sisters travel to regularly, and the stories are the same. It's beautiful.
Right.
You know, one of the things that I think she mentioned about nature, like, you know, nature. Now, when I travel back home, that is what when I went to Uganda specifically, and when I went to Uganda, I felt like I was, because I'm from the Caribbean, so I felt
Yeah.
like I was back home, and the only way to describe that is that you are now able to take off. I guess you would say the mask. You can let your hair down.
Yes.
You know, that's the only way I
Yeah.
can describe it.
Yeah.
You know, even though you're among quote unquote strangers,
Yeah.
you're still like
Yeah.
there's something very
Kinship.
familiar
A
about
kinship.
this place.
Yeah.
You know, something very familiar to where I feel like I could just kick off my shoes and really just be myself.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Yeah. That's definitely the feeling. It's a
Yeah.
kinship. You
Yeah.
just feel like you
Yeah.
around cousins and uncles
Yeah.
and nephews that you've never even met before, but they all
Yeah.
embrace you and love you nonetheless. Like a family reunion type feel.
Yeah, this is it. It's like you're returning home.
Yeah.
You know, it just feels like home when you get there, because it is our home.
Yeah.
It's just that no one told us that. Definitely growing up here in the UK, no one told us,
Yeah.
you know, that we were even African. We had to discover that as part of our journey when we were, you know, trying to find our identity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, we grew up in the schools here in the UK, you know, not knowing we're African. Can you believe that? Imagine a Chinese child growing up not knowing that they're Chinese. I mean, it's just how absurd is that?
Yeah, yeah, that's real. It's interesting. It's like the one half of the name that a lot of us proclaim is African American. You know,
Yeah.
and to subscribe to that title and not even experience one half of your namesake is an interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Yeah.
You know, what comes to my mind is how dismissive some of us tend to be toward Africa, without understanding how much wealth, the wealthiest, mineral richest continent on earth, and how much beauty and wealth, and it's our namesake, it's our, you know what I'm saying,
Inheritance.
It's our inheritance. Yes. And it's like, it's almost, for me, when people dismiss Africa in exchange for wherever else you are in the world, for me it's almost like you're throwing away a diamond for a rock. You're like, I don't, you know what I'm saying, I'll take this rock in the place of a diamond.
Like Garvey said, why would I take an island over, and paraphrase that, over a whole continent?
Over a whole continent.
That's pretty much what
Like,
Garvey said. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic. But we've been glorifying all the beautiful things about Africa, which there's many.
Yes.
But, you know, as far as balance is concerned, because, you know, there are, you know, some challenges like everywhere else in the world. What do you think are some of the things that people should expect when they go, that may not be like in the form of luxuries that they're accustomed to in the UK or America?
Good question.
I don't know. Errol, help me out on this one. Yeah, yeah, just remember you are in Africa, and you know, but even though you're in Africa, it depends where you're staying. You've still got running water, you've still got hot and cold water. You still got electricity. Okay, sometimes we might have some outages, but they have the generators that kick in. The hotels, you always have Wi-Fi. Your phone works.
You don't see no cons. In your mind, there is no cons.
It's an adjustment.
Right.
You're either going to adjust.
Food is a little different. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So the food might be different. I suppose that's what you've got to expect in terms of the difference. The food will be a bit different.
Yeah. But I feel like the things that you're listing is everywhere.
Right.
When you visit somewhere that is foreign to you, it is a mental adjustment automatically. That's not just Africa. Yeah. So to kind of try to make it simply like it's an African thing is really sad on our part, because it's an adjustment anywhere you go from what you're familiar to. I guess, as I'm listening to, I'm like, wait, that's anywhere you go. Because we have outages in the island I'm from right now. Yeah. So.
Right.
And I think a lot of the misconceptions are that Africa is underdeveloped.
Yes.
People really think when they go, they're just going to be seeing jungles and trees everywhere. Dirt, you know what I'm saying?
I used to be asked when I first moved, do you guys travel around in boats? Yeah. People have these ideas and then you'll be surprised. Yeah.
What can you say to that, Shanice?
Yeah, there has been decades, at least, throughout my entire life, the media portrayal of Africa has been so unfair. It's been so derogatory and insulting, and demeaning. They've painted a really awful, grisly picture of Africa and the people of Africa. And it's been deliberate, to elevate themselves and to make us feel inferior and to make them feel superior, and also to stop us from going to Africa to experience Africa because maybe they're fearful we might want to go back and lay claim to the wealth that you was talking about and the riches that Africa actually possesses. Because as we know, the West, even though, they're no longer, in control of the country, so to speak, they're still continuing to plunder Africa for its wealth because they need all of the minerals, some of which you've touched on, to build their empires over here, you see, in the West. And so, they've painted, just like they've painted us as Africans to be savages back in the day, to justify them enslaving us, claiming that they want to civilize us, Now what they're having to do to justify the plundering of Africa is to paint the image of Africa as being somewhere that is uncivilized, and is a chaotic place, is full of corruption, full of catastrophes, full of wars, and all of the problems, almost all of those problems, it's them saying one creating the problems behind the scenes, because it's to justify their means. And so don't believe the hype. I say to people, go and check out Africa for yourself.
Yeah,
she's beautiful.
Absolutely.
And where she's lacking, that's where we need to step in. And that's where our skills and that's where our talents can actually contribute towards the development, I should say the redevelopment of Africa, because Africa was developed. She had cities and she had great kingdoms, hundreds and hundreds of cities in the southern region of Africa alone. But had it not been for the destruction by the Europeans when they came and they invaded and they destroyed and they torched and they tore down, had it not been for that mass destruction, to try and rid any evidence of the great civilizations that have existed, then Africa would have been a far superior built up continent than we're looking at today. But, she's got to be rebuilt. Yeah, she's got to be rebuilt.
Well, we have completely run out of time, but we want to let folks know where they can get your information if they want to travel with you to Africa.
Right. Well, if members of the diaspora would like to travel with us to Mama Africa, they can email me. The email address is Starlight Global Events at yahoo.com. That's Starlight Global Events at yahoo.com. And I can give them a WhatsApp telephone number as well. They can WhatsApp me on +44 7415 097 947 07. So that's +44 7415 097 947. That's the right one. 097 947. I have to kind of say it like a ring, like a song to remember my number.
Got it locked in. Okay, Sister Shanice, we have ran out of time completely. We thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again soon in October. And family, come on and join us on these wonderful African excursions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
more love, more power, more strength to both of you.
Thank you.
One love.
Until next week, family, take care of each other out there. Peace.